So we're here at Twin Cities Startup Week. This is our podcast we call Spotlight, and really it's about turning the spotlight on you and getting to know a bit about what you're up to in the world. So why don't you start by telling us your first name, last name, and kind of what you do?
Yeah, fantastic. Appreciate it. So I'm Allison Hillman, and I'm the director for what we call Client Accounting and Advisory Services at Redpath and Company in St. Paul. So we're a local CPA firm. We do the tax and audit side of things, but my team in particular focuses on really the corporate accounting side. So everything from, bill pay and invoicing and the really transactional, kind of bookkeeping side of things, all the way up through we have a fractional controller and fractional CFO practice. And so the reason we're at Startup Week is, we work with a lot of startup businesses. Again, the founders should really be focused on their business, not on trying to keep track of receipts and doing credit card payments and, getting the tax information to their tax guy at the end of the year. So that's really what we help with. And then our fractional controllers and fractional CFOs do a lot of advising, right, on, your banking relationships, your insurance relationships, helping put together that investor packet. It's, just really helping you suss out your business plan. What do the numbers look like behind that? How do we make sure that this is successful? What does your growth plan look like? And kind of just being that person to bounce ideas off of.
So we're at Startup Week, and you're dealing with a lot of startups. What would you say is kind of one of the most common early startup mistakes that you see when it comes to accounting?
Yeah, I would say not keeping track of everything from day one. I think that's really the biggest thing is so many startups get, 2 or 3 years down the road where they really are starting to have a, higher transaction of sales, of customers, of all of that. And they haven't really had any sort of formalized accounting in place. And so they're having to go back and recreate, a couple years worth of data and receipts and customer invoices and vendors and all of that. And it's a big lift. It really is. And especially if you're getting to the point where you're getting, working with more serious investors that want a true kind of financial picture from you, having to go back and recreate that is a huge lift when you're in the middle of trying to get some funding.
So is this your first year at Startup Week?
It is. Okay. Yeah.
So what do you feel? What do you feel so far?
I mean, day one, I didn't get to come to anything yesterday. So this is day one for me. But so far, I love the energy. I feel like we've done a few events with Communiful in the past, and I just love the energy that they bring. And the startup community in Minnesota is so vibrant and so there's just so much energy in the room, which I love. So it's fun to just talk to different founders, hear about their company, their ideas, how they got started in it. I think is just so fascinating. So a lot of fun so far.
So have you had a lot of conversations with founders so far?
Not yet. Not at this one. I just have attended one session so far. It's still early in the day, but that's definitely kind of the plan for the day is just talk to everyone that's here and, attend some sessions too. I think there's some really, really interesting content at Startup Week this year. So a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah. So you already gave us a little piece of advice. We're talking about, what it's common amongst startup founders and some of the mistakes they make. But if you had another piece of just like key advice for the startup community, what should they be doing in terms of accounting?
Definitely. I think, the first thing is you really need to have, like I said, it's really building those foundational pieces, right? I think especially what's so key for startups is getting funding, right? Like that's such a key focus, such an important part of how they're going to get their business off the ground. And so having an advisor who can kind of question your assumptions that you're putting into your business plan, your business model, those are the questions that those investors are going to ask you. And so if you have had someone kind of push back a little bit on your assumptions going into those meetings, you're going to be so much better prepared to present an answer, and have an actual answer to some of those questions that are going to come up.
I remember when I was in college that I took a startup class and wrote a business plan. And I actually took it out to a friend of mine who had some parents who had started businesses. And I know they loved the business plan part of the idea was solid. But as soon as I got into the financials, they told me I was just like way overly optimistic. Is that a common theme, you think?
Yeah. I think it absolutely is. And it's a healthy theme, right? Like, I think as the business owner, as the founder, you should be optimistic. There's a reason you're going into this business is because you are excited about what you do and you know that there is a market for it. So you should be optimistic. And that's kind of why you need that CFO, that advisor, to push back on that a little bit and say, okay, let's break some of these numbers down. Let's figure out, if you think you're going to grow sales, 10% in the first year, where is that coming from? Where are you taking market share from? Where are you creating market share? To really kind of talking through all the assumptions behind that. Because yes, that is definitely something we see very often. And the first thing that a potential investor is going to push back on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. So if you had one piece of just kind of inspiration to give to the audience, what would that be?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a tricky one. Inspiration. I mean, I would say, the thing that I find every time I'm at an event, in the Minnesota startup community is just the stories are so compelling. And so I think for founders, it's really know your story, know your why, right? Talking about your differentiators, talking about your product, those are all good things, but knowing your why, and, your foundational story, keep telling that, because I think that's one of the most powerful things that you have as a founder, as an owner. And, again, our job as kind of the business advisor side is really to make sure that you feel really confident telling that story, and can back it up, with some data and some numbers. And if you've got those two pieces combined, you can really hit the ground running with the business. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Best way to get off to a good start. Huh?
Absolutely.
I love it. Well, thank you for taking some time with us today. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. That's it. Hey, it's Will with the PodcastCrew team. Spotlight is a vidcast shot at the PodcastCrew studios in Minneapolis. We would love for you to be our guest. Email us at the email address on your screen below to get a copy of the upcoming schedule. It's free, it's easy, and is a great way to try out a podcast or a vidcast with our pro team. We do an in-person, in-studio version if you're in the Twin Cities area, and also an online version if you're somewhere else. We'd love to have you, hear your story, and help you start your podcast journey. Thanks. Get in touch today.